Last night's Late Show with Stephen Colbert became an absolute disaster when Jamie Lee Curtis walked off set after Colbert made comments about her family that crossed every conceivable line. The Halloween legend didn't just leave. She delivered a lesson about legacy and privilege that left Colbert's reputation in ruins. But what started as promotion for her new charity initiative would expose something about nepotism in Hollywood that Colbert wasn't prepared to have turned back on him. The Ed Sullivan Theater carried strange energy from the start. Jamie Lee Curtis arrived to discuss her children's hospital charity work, but Colbert's team had prepared an entirely different angle. A production assistant overheard Colbert telling his writers, "Let's talk about Hollywood dynasties. Make her squirm about the nepotism thing." Therefore, when the cameras rolled, Curtis could sense something predatory in the atmosphere. The show began with Colbert's standard political monologue, the audience responding with practiced laughter. Curtis waited backstage, reviewing statistics about childhood opioid victims she planned to discuss. "Ladies and gentlemen, Hollywood royalty herself, Jamie Lee Curtis," Colbert announced. She walked out with confident grace, waving warmly to the audience before taking her seat. "Jamie Lee, welcome back," Colbert said with his trademark grin. "You know, it must be nice being Hollywood royalty. Tony Curtis's daughter, Janet Leigh's daughter. Doors just opened for you, didn't they?" Curtis paused, her expression cooling slightly. "I'm here to discuss my charity work, Stephen," she said calmly. "Of course, but first, don't you think it's important to acknowledge your privilege? I mean, you're literally a Nepo baby," Colbert pressed. The term hung in the air like poison. The audience shifted uncomfortably, but Curtis remained composed. "I've never hidden my parents' identities, Stephen. But I've also worked for 45 years to build my own career," she said. "Sure, but that first door opened because of your name," Colbert insisted. "Many doors open for many reasons," Curtis replied. "What matters is what you do once you're inside." But Colbert wouldn't let it go. "It's just interesting that someone who benefited from nepotism is now playing the charity card. Guilt, perhaps," he suggested. Therefore, the attack was both personal and calculated. Curtis's eyes flashed dangerously. "Guilt? For having successful parents? Should I apologize for being born?" she asked. "I'm just saying, maybe acknowledge that your success isn't entirely earned," Colbert said smugly. Curtis leaned forward slowly. "Stephen, where did you go to college?" she asked. "Northwestern," he replied, caught off guard. "On scholarship?" she pressed. "Well, no, my parents," he started. "Your parents paid. Your father was in the medical field, correct? Upper middle class? Private schools?" Curtis continued. Colbert shifted uncomfortably. "That's different," he said. "Is it? You had advantages. Education, connections, financial security. But I'm the only one who should apologize for mine?" she asked. The audience was completely silent, sensing the power shift. But Curtis was just getting started. "Let's talk about your entry into television. Didn't you get your first job through a family friend? Wasn't your first writing position because someone knew someone?" she pressed. "That's how the industry works," Colbert defended. "Exactly. But when I say it, I'm a Nepo baby. When you benefit from it, it's just networking," Curtis observed. Therefore, she'd exposed his hypocrisy perfectly. But Colbert tried to recover. "The difference is, I don't pretend." "Pretend what? That I earned my career? Stephen, I've been killed in horror films for 4 decades. I've done my own stunts, worked 18-hour days, been covered in fake blood more times than I can count. That's not privilege. That's work," she said firmly. "Work that you got because," Colbert started. "Because I auditioned. Because I showed up. Because I delivered. Yes, my name might have gotten me in the room. But it didn't keep me there for 45 years, Curtis interrupted. She stood up, her presence commanding the stage. "You know what your problem is, Stephen? You think acknowledging privilege means dismissing achievement. They're not mutually exclusive," she said. "I'm just asking for honesty," Colbert claimed. "No, you're asking for self-flagellation. You want me to diminish my accomplishments to make you feel better about yours," Curtis replied. The psychological insight was devastating. But then she revealed something that changed everything. "You want to talk about nepotism? Let's talk about late-night television. How many hosts are white men from comfortable backgrounds? How many got their jobs through connections rather than merit?" she asked. "That's not relevant," Colbert said weakly. "Isn't it? You're hosting this show because Letterman retired and CBS needed someone safe. You got the Colbert Report because you knew the right people at Comedy Central. But on the nepotism problem? Curtis asked. The audience began murmuring, some nodding in agreement. But Curtis had more ammunition. Let's discuss your writer's room. How many are Ivy League graduates? How many got hired because they knew someone? Your entire industry runs on the same privilege you're attacking me for, she said. This is deflection, Colbert accused. This is reflection, Curtis corrected. I'm holding up a mirror. You don't like what you see. She turned to the audience. He wants me to apologize for my parents' success while he benefits from systemic advantages he won't even acknowledge, she told them. I've worked hard for everything, Colbert protested. So have I, Curtis said, her voice rising for the first time. That's the point you're missing. Having advantages doesn't negate hard work, but you want to diminish mine while protecting yours. Therefore, the philosophical destruction was complete. But Curtis wasn't finished. You know what I've done with my privilege? I've used it to help others. My charity work, my advocacy for children's hospitals. What have you done with yours besides mock other people's? She asked. I use my platform for good, Colbert said defensively. You use your platform for ratings, Curtis corrected. There's a difference between activism and entertainment. She pulled out her phone. Want to know how much I've raised for children's hospitals? $37 million. Want to know how much you've raised with all your political grandstanding? She asked. Colbert couldn't answer, but Curtis could. I looked it up. Your charitable giving is less than 1% of your income. But I'm the one who should feel guilty, she said. The contrast was damning. The audience was now fully on Curtis's side. But she had one more revelation. You know what your former colleague told me? That you regularly make female guests cry backstage. That you're known for these ambush tactics. That CBS has received multiple complaints, she said. That's confidential, Colbert said, panicking. So was my appearance fee, which your warm-up guy mocked to the audience before I came out, Curtis replied. She looked directly at the camera. I came here to talk about dying children who need medical care. Instead, I got attacked for having famous parents by a man who won't acknowledge his own advantages, she said. This is getting out of hand, Colbert said desperately. No, it's finally getting honest, Curtis replied. I'm done with this show. I'm done pretending that cruel humor is clever. I'm done with hosts who tear down women for sport. I tear down everyone equally, Colbert protested. Do you? When was the last time you questioned a male guest about nepotism? When was the last time you made a man justify his success? Curtis asked. The silence was her answer. But she delivered the final blow. Your father died when you were young. That tragedy shaped you. But imagine if every interviewer asked you if you used that trauma for sympathy, for career advancement. That's what you just did to me about my parents, she said. The parallel was devastating. Colbert's face went white. That's not the same, he said weakly. It's exactly the same. Using someone's family against them. The only difference is I'm not cruel enough to do it, Curtis said. She walked toward the exit, then turned back. By the way, Stephen, your nephew works on this show. In a position he's not qualified for. But sure, let's talk about nepotism, she said. The revelation exploded through the studio. The audience gasped. Some even booed Colbert. But Curtis raised her hand. Don't boo him. Pity him. He's so insecure about his own advantages that he has to attack others for theirs, she said. She left to a standing ovation. The audience cheered while Colbert sat alone, completely destroyed. The interview had turned into an interrogation, and he'd been found guilty. We'll be right back, he mumbled, but his voice was hollow. Within minutes, #JamieLeeTeachesColbert was trending worldwide. The clip went viral across every platform. But the real impact came from Hollywood. Dozens of actors came forward with similar stories about being questioned about their backgrounds while interviewers ignored their own privileges. The term Colbert hypocrisy began trending. CBS received thousands of complaints. Sponsors threatened to pull out. The network ordered sensitivity training for all talk show hosts. Colbert's reputation as a progressive voice was shattered. Meanwhile, Curtis's charity received millions in donations. Her dignified defense resonated across industries. She'd articulated something that privileged people who work hard had struggled to express. The incident sparked a national conversation about privilege, merit, and the complexity of success. Curtis had shown that acknowledging advantages didn't mean dismissing achievements. Colbert attempted an apology the next night. I was wrong to attack Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm examining my own biases, he said. But the audience was cold. Trust was broken. His ratings plummeted. Guests became harder to book. The show that had thrived on moral superiority had been exposed as morally bankrupt. But Jamie Lee Curtis emerged stronger than ever. She'd refused to apologize for her birth while acknowledging her advantages. She'd shown that privilege and hard work could coexist. Most importantly, she'd exposed the hypocrisy of those who attack others' advantages while hiding their own. The Nepo baby accusation had been turned into a mirror, and Colbert couldn't stand his own reflection. The empty chair she left became iconic, a symbol of dignity refusing to participate in false shame, of success defending itself without apology, of Jamie Lee Curtis teaching Stephen Colbert that those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, especially when those stones are shaped like privilege they refuse to acknowledge.